Namaste. So, we read today a prayer of the Mother which reveals to us the law of effort, or rather of effortlessness. You see, this is a great challenge for human nature. Animals, though effort is there in nature, you can't live without effort because there is gati, movement, and but when we look at animals, we see that there is a state of effortlessness in which they enter effortlessly, and that is because they live by instinct. If you look at the classic example of an effortless creature, the python, there's a whole proverb in, or rather a little bit of a couplet in Hindi. अजगर करे न चाकरी, पंछी करे न काम, दास मलुका कह गए सबके दाता राम. Now I don't know who is Das Maluka, but the point is that Ajgar, the python, doesn't do any work, or neither the bird, but the Lord takes care and he feeds everybody. Now it is so strange, if you look at a python, once in a month it eats. How does it know? How does an animal reach it? It stays where it is. And same we see with many of the animals, that they are as if provided for. And it's a very humbling experience of life. Often when people worry about so many things, what may happen, may not happen, this is something unique to human beings, that we are worried about the future. Not only worried, we are anxious about it. And if you look at ants, even they are provided for. The small little cells are also provided for. There's that line in Savitri, man lifted up the burden of his fate. But for human beings, the effort changes from instinct into conscious effort. And that's where the problem comes, because we are built like that. We have to make conscious choices. And based on the choices, we walk. We can't live like animals that will be driven by instincts, desires, impulsions. That is one kind of spontaneity in which the animal consciousness lives. But with the coming of mind, this spontaneity may be very dangerous. If we just say that I am going with the flow, this is a common term used, but going with the flow may be very dangerous for human nature. At the same time, there is a art by which human beings can go to a higher state of effortlessness. That's when they begin to live or express the intuitive truth of their being. Now, this state in which we don't really put effort, even though to an outsider it may look like an effort, this state of divine spontaneity comes from a certain simplicity in nature, which is uncomplicated by all kinds of mental ideas, views, opinions. We set a goal. For example, a typical human being is driven by targets. So he sets a target. Okay, in 1 month I am going to achieve equanimity. There are people who do like that. And then now you have put yourself into impossible situation. It's a lifetime process. Or another one where you make a target, and mother speaks of that I must change my outer circumstances. For instance, that I have to do yoga, and yoga can only be done in Pondicherry or any other place, we may in a Himalayas or somewhere. So people try to do all kinds of things to change their outer situation with the idea that this is going to help them in the yoga. But when they come, after all this squeezing and twisting and turning, they realize, no, I am just the same person. And mother says so beautifully, but whereas if you change yourself within, you don't need to change outer circumstances, situations. So, but there are equally people who very naturally, spontaneously, life carries them and they are very conscious about it. And they receive the guidance when it comes. Guidance, again, very often people think guidance means there will be a voice which will tell us, go here, go there. Divine guidance doesn't work like that. The divine guidance is much like the sun touching the birds, and the birds open like this. That's divine guidance works like that. Or in nature, we see everything blooming, the river flowing where it has to flow, the clouds wandering and then raining. It's based on in another kind of logic, which our human mind doesn't understand. Our human mind wants to arrange and categorize things logically, which is all right. To start with, it is good to be reasonable. But there is another dimension when we enter into that. Then life begins to automatically obey a kind of divine impulsion. And when that happens, we have to receive it and go by it. So this prayer is about that, and it's a very sobering prayer. And it's a prayer dated February 12, 1913. And it starts with a very beautiful little, how we should be. People often, when they talk about sadhana, they put themselves into, they tie many strings and, it's immediately mental concepts. Do this, don't do this. But this is not what yoga is about. There is a very beautiful book which Mother speaks about. She used to read in Friday classes. And if you would lay your hand, please read this book. It's called Wu Wei. It is the path. And she read this book. And this book is about a ordinary man who wants to know the wisdom. So he goes all the way and meets a sage. It's the wisdom of Lao Tse. So he says, what should be my life like? How should I live? And how beautifully the sage unfolds within him that you have to discover your own truth and go by that. And if for each one, it is something unique and beautiful. And I have seen that people suffer. They get depressed. They feel stifled inside because they are not leading according to this truth. But we have to remember that there are two aspects of it. My truth is my unique truth. It is not somebody else's truth. So trying to either imitate someone or trying to influence someone to live life according to my truth is again the mind coming into play. It tries to create uniformity. Everybody should be the way I feel, I think. There are all kinds of people. For example, there are people who are very, there's a word Mother has used, over-conscientious. So over-conscientious people know everything should be organic, for example. This is a new trend which is going on. And you will see that some of them become so aggressive. I have known people who are so angry because things are not organic in a particular restaurant they have gone. Just because, they believe in organic. Now, nothing wrong in having organic food or this, that. Each one has their choices. Well, you should have a freedom to choose whether you want to choose this or that. Similarly, there are people who are finicky about either vegetarianism, like previously it used to be about non-vegetarianism. It's just sung the other way, that if you don't take non-vegetarian food, you will be weak. It's not true at all. Now the cycle has swung in a different direction. So we must understand that each one has his own law of evolution. Again, people who believe in God, they want others to force others to believe in what they believe in. So this proselytizing attitude, it's not healthy because each one has their own truth, way of being. Sri Aurobindo even says there is a phase of life when even denial of God, atheism, has its own purpose. After all, who is atheist? He starts with denial. At least he is giving a thought about it. Who knows whether he is better or just a man who is blindly believing in God because he wants his desires to be satisfied. Atheist is at least raising questions in his mind and has his own, take on it. But there is another kind of belief system in which people are born. All their life they believe, but they are really hardly walking on the path. As Sri Aurobindo says that, atheist is denying God, but who is the theist? He is the one who has seen the shadow, though he is no better, but he has seen the shadow and believes it to be real and true. So each one has his own process of unfolding. There are some plants which are to be kept in hot summer. There are others which have to be kept in shade. And if you mix up the two, then life will become very difficult. There are plants which need very little water. If you give more water, they will die. And there are plants which need a lot of water. And if you don't give them enough, they will die. So this we have to discover, and it starts very beautifully. As soon as all effort disappears from a manifestation, it becomes very simple. With the simplicity of a flower opening, manifesting its beauty and spreading its fragrance without clamor or vehement gesture. It's its law of being. It is just fulfilling what it is meant for. This famous episode of Bhima, if you look at his life, his deeds, they will appear very gory. Killing 100 sons, not leaving even one. But when he is asked that, why did you kill 100 children of mine when his mom, not direct mom, Madi Ma pusti hai, the Tau's wife, Gandhari. He says 100, if you had 200, I would have killed them. He doesn't say out of cruelty, but it is his dharma, it is the way he is. But If you ask Vidur the same question, he will not say that. So we have to discover, it's called in the Gita as Swadharma. So each one has to move along a path which is destined for that individual. But when we try to push things in a certain way, then we create a problem. Even that effort can become a veil, because there is only one reality, it is the divine, and the divine is expressing in countless ways. So if we can make a flower, for a flower, it is divinity to bloom. For a lion, it's divinity to leap. Even for a serpent, there is divinity to move swiftly. For a bird, it's divinity to fly. And for human beings, it's divinity to discover this presence inside, which is always there. But the quieter we become, the more simpler and beautiful life becomes. So this is what she's saying. Fragrance without clamor or vehement gesture. Flowers don't announce, it's one of the best ways to cure ourselves of depression. Because whenever we feel let down, we should come in contact with something which has those divine qualities inside it, and it shares its divine qualities with us. And anything. You can look at a river and get free of depression. Why? Because you'll see the flow of life constantly. You know that deep inside the riverbed is the same, but outside things change. So it doesn't trouble you because things are changing. They are bound to change. If they are not changing, there is something wrong. But deep inside, there is an unchanging core. Similarly, we see that every day the sun rises, it's the same, but it's not yet the same. The day has moved forward. So many things we can learn from life, and one of them is flower. See, so beautifully she says, look at a flower and you will imbibe the qualities of a flower. And what are those qualities? It is equal. It doesn't prefer this over that. It's frank, it's generous. It doesn't say that, oh, you don't deserve to receive this. It doesn't become haughty and arrogant and say, I'm going to hide my beauty and fragrance because, I am somebody great. It just lets its fragrance spread all around. So, we have to be like that. But vehement gesture, when we try to push something very hard, then we are doing something very artificial. You will see it. It's a very cruel act, by the way. You will see that sometimes when you go to buy a flower from a flower vendor. So what he'll do, they have those buds. Why they have the buds? Because if it's fully opened naturally, then they have to sell it within a fixed time. So they pick up the buds. And when you go there, what he does, artificially opens the bud. Right? Similarly, Mother gives another example that every fruit has to be eaten in a season. If you do it out of season, either it will be no good or it is spoiled. So this respect for the natural unfolding in creation, man has to discover. Man has lost it. Animals have it. That's why Sri Aurobindo says one of the difference between man and animals is animals make a fool of themselves in season, but man does it in season and out of season. Because his mind has come in, his vital has come in, and they corrupt the whole file. And in this simplicity lies the greatest power. The power which is least mixed and least gives rise to harmful reactions. When we try to do it with the mind, trying to mentally arrange things, organize things, this way, that way, then we fail to read the inner impulsion which is coming before us. And we miss out on something fundamental. We may organize it like, the way mind wants, and nothing wrong when we are in total ignorance, then this is what is given to man. But we miss out on a natural curve of evolution which is opening before us. So she says that when we allow this simplicity, then it's a great power and it is least mixed. It leads to least harmful reactions. The power of the vital should be mistrusted. Vital wants everything quickly. It's like in yoga. I want quickly this experience. Sometimes people ask, oh, I don't have visions and voices. Why should you have visions and voices? Why should everybody have vision and voices? If God enjoys denying the vision and voices, and He is giving something else, take it. Anyways, visions and voices are capacities of nature. They are not, there are people who have it as a gift. So the important thing is that what is the expression of the divine within us that we have to catch. And that is where the whole rub lies. The power of the vital should be mistrusted, but vital wants to push things in its own way. It has its own agenda. It is the tempter on the path of the work. I want to do it. I want to do it this way. Then next is I want to do only this way. Then next is whoever is doing any other way is wrong. And what happens? Vital builds a whole world according to its own idea of perfection. But it's an illusory world. So after some time it breaks and it can be very painful. So it's a tempter on the path of the work. And there is always a risk of falling into its trap. For it gives you the taste of immediate results. That's why we see, sometimes we say, oh, in any collective group, it should be like this, like that. But divine doesn't want to do things in a vital way. You see, you will see these two kinds of creation. I was watching this man now is behind the bars. You know the name of the person. He created a place called On the Lines of Auroville. I don't remember now what name he gave, but it was like 7 marks of like Eiffel Tower and like 7 of these Taj Mahal wonders he had created within his campus. Artificial, of course. Thinking that this is like the whole world is there. It's an artificially created thing. A lot of money came and then it whole thing collapsed. Whereas look at the real Auroville. 50 years and still it is like it's only 10 years back that you see the Matri Mandir got ready. Because mother doesn't want it to be created in an artificial way. Artificial way is typical when there was a Admiral Rutledge from US Navy. He came to ashram and he said, Mother, all these fellows, you give me 3 months, I'll set everything straight. Mother laughed. He said, you can try. So he tried. After 1 month he came, said, I understand, Mother, it cannot be done like that. She doesn't want it like that. Why? Because it's all artificial. Artificially you can arrange things. But you have to allow this to grow in its own beautiful way. So she says the power of the vitals should be mistrusted. It is a tempter on the path of the work, and there is always a risk of falling into its trap, for it gives you the taste of immediate results, and in our first eagerness to do the work well, we let ourselves be carried away to make use of this power. And she's saying, eagerness to do the work well. I want to do mother's work. I am doing mother's work. This is mother's work. Everything go green. Now this, nobody can deny that it's in the larger plan. But if you try to do it with the vital, you will only have an illusion. Why? Because what is the real work? The real work is going on inside. So what happens? You have forced a rule. From tomorrow, everybody will go green. Why? Because order. And everybody goes green because, you have passed a diktat. So everybody goes green. Very good. What is happening inside now? It is contrary to many people's different ways of evolving. And there is inside, either people crush their own way of life and their own process of evolution, and therefore they feel stifled, which is not healthy. There is disharmony, there is disgruntlement inside, but outwardly everything is fine. We are all go green. But inside it's not green with that green, it's green with envy. There is red with anger. There is black fear. All this is happening inside. So that's why it's this vital way of doing things, by pushing things, by diktat. You'll find in ashram, now we have some rules, but originally what was the rule? Only one rule was there. That too was not a rule. When mother was asked to give rules, she said, I don't like to give rules. Then people insisted. They said, okay, since people are talking about rule, I am giving it. But I don't believe in rules. Mother's words, you will see it still there in the booklet. So even in same thing in Auroville, he said, they are insisting, so I am giving rules. Why she didn't believe in rule? Why in freedom? Because there is a tremendous truth about it. When we make something artificial, then Sri Aurobindo described beautifully in Savitri, it is efficient, mechanical, robotic, perfect, artificial, false. It's not true. It's perfect, but it's not true, because it's like your being's truth. But when something is done in freedom, then it really has a chance of learning, growing, evolving, and that's what life is about. We are so worried about mistakes. Somebody was asking today, one child, that, why do I make mistakes again and again? I said, you look at it like mistakes. How do you know? I said, there are no mistakes. There are steps of learning. It's a process. That's how you grow. But sometimes we have this zero error syndrome because of the mental ideas, concepts, and we never grow because we have artificially created an image. Then people start living in those images. A sadhu must always wear white, always wear what is that color? Orange color. He must behave in a certain way. Now, what is happening? He has erected an illusory self image. And when the image breaks, it will be disastrous. It was never a truth, it was an image. So that's why she is saying that this vital may give immediate results. That from today, Swamiji doesn't eat non-vegetarian. He always wears white. There used to be this thing, ekranga kapada. He only wears chappal, that also made of khadi. And look at it, what a great Swamiji. So now what is happening inside? Ego is getting flattered. So you are not noticing it because you have created an illusion. So she says this is the problem of vital. And sometimes it is because you want to do the work well. But very soon it deflects all our action from the right course. What is the right course? It's not about mental right and wrong, but the course intended for us. So it deflects. It goes into something very external. And introduces a seed of illusion and death into what we do. I know one Swamiji, very honest of him though. He turned to Mother and Sri Aurobindo around 70, like that. He was head of a whole group of disciples. And he started being fascinated. He used to come for talks and became little intimate to share his issues. So one day I told him that why are you carrying on with this Girva Vastra when you have realized that the real thing is inside? He said, I know, but I am trapped in it. If I take it off now, all my disciples, they will disown me. I said, let them disown you. What is there? He said, that is the difficult part. Imagine you can be trapped in a way of life because now you have created it like that, artificially about yourself. And you are a captive and prisoner of your own mental views about life. Whereas divine manifestation takes place. If you look at the Ramayana, Mahabharata, that's why people can't understand. How is Krishna and Rama a god? Because they don't understand this idea of Swadharma. They have this idea of divine who must, be a renunciate and outwardly. But look at life of Krishna, Arjuna, Rama, many of these great Parshuram, very unlike divine avatar. People try to justify, you don't have to do that. It's so beautiful when you look at his life from the deeper perspective. His mission, his purpose is to make sure that the arrogant Kshatriyas are wiped out. It doesn't matter how he does it. It's his impulsion, like a Shivaji. Shivaji is divine when he takes, he has deceived the Mughals. And somebody was asking if Britishers had not come into India, what would have happened? Britishers, Dutch and French. You know what would have happened? We would have had a Maratha Empire in all likelihood. And he used these methods, but divine's ways at a young age he was removed because something else had to come. So this thing says that it deflects, introduces a seed of illusion and death. So what should be the approach? Simplicity. Simplicity. How sweet is the purity of thy presence. So life blossoms when we are simple. So what makes two things she is reminding us, which introduce complications. One is the vital, with all its desires, pushes, rushes. And the second is the mind with its concepts and ideas. If we can learn to quieten these sheaths and just be what the divine wants us to be, and give ourselves to this great and wonderful work which the divine has made us for, doesn't matter what it is, then the divine will unfold. And it will unfold in its own way. And it's something very beautiful. So this is what we are revealed here. She speaks of this in another context, several places. Two things which I remember is, one is where she says, be like a water lily. Look at a water lily, how it's floating on a river. So beautiful to see. So naturally, spontaneously at ease. It's not trying to become something else or somebody else. But this is the problem with competition, jealousy, envy, that you are trying to become something else, somebody else. Whereas you are meant to be some other, a poet. He should be a poet. He's no need to become, let's say a doctor or a philosopher or something. I mean, or an engineer, because that's his natural expression of life, the joy of life. But when we try to become somebody else, so the problem of vital. It brings in all these elements. And the other is mind. This or that. But the divine doesn't work like that. Everything in this world is an effort of the divine to express himself. Let him do it. So she says, be like a water lily. Imagine a water lily floating on a pond. It's so soothing. Second, she says, whenever I go to Sri Aurobindo and tell him about, so much ashram, this complexity, this problem, she says, Sri Aurobindo just smiles and he says, be simple, be simple, be simple. And he says, my child, even now I am learning this lesson. Be simple. And for us, this simplicity becomes even more simpler. If we see the life of Janina Stroka, how beautifully she writes in a letter, I have finally learned this yoga. It is very simple. So what is this yoga? She says, nothing. I have to just keep giving to the mother. What do you mean? So she says, if I have a headache, I tell the mother, I gave it to you. If the maid servant has not come, and I am feeling agitated, so I give it to the mother. Maid servant has not come, I give it to you. And I just continue to do how she would want me to be and what she would want me to do, based not on any mental ideas, but from that inner standpoint in the work, whatever is the field of work given to us, big or small, just to blossom like that. So this is the beautiful way to live. But she says also that it's not easy, because the mind will interfere and the vital will interfere. There's a whole, I think it's in Collected Works of the Mother, volume 8 or 7, where she speaks about this Wu Wei. Read that way. She says, to be simple, to be spontaneous, you have to be simple. To be simple, you have to be sincere. You have to be clear what sincere, here she says, in the sense, what is it that is your unique expression? One has to discover that. There is a feel, one has to feel for that. And the one criteria is that when you do that, you feel an instant joy. You don't need anything else from outside. Say, unimaginable joy which comes when you're just like we breathe. That's how it should be. So we read this prayer again. February 12th, 1913. As soon as all effort disappears from a manifestation, it becomes very simple, with the simplicity of a flower opening, manifesting its beauty and spreading its fragrance without clamor or vehement gesture. All these calculations should not come. I am spreading this beauty. What about the other person? Does he deserve? Doesn't deserve? Don't bring all that. Just be what you are meant to be. Of course, this be is the highest, the deepest. And in this simplicity lies the greatest power. It's a power. People think it's a weakness, it's a great power, because then the divine blesses us and is with us. The power which is least mixed and least gives rise to harmful reactions, because you are what you are. The power of the vitals should be mistrusted. It is a tempter on the path of the work. And there is always a risk of falling into its trap, for it gives you the taste of immediate results, and in our first eagerness to do the work well, we let ourselves be carried away to make use of this power. Because you need the vital to manifest everything, but vitals should be an instrument of manifestation, not a leader. The vital, physical, mental are instruments of the soul, not the leader. So she's saying when it leads, there is a problem. I'll give you quick results. But very soon it deflects all our action from the right course and introduces a seed of illusion and death into what we do. Simplicity, simplicity. How sweet is the purity of thy presence. So it's a constant reminder that she's again saying vital, mind, physical, they are instruments. They are not leaders. If they become the leaders, then there's a problem. Lot of people who have chosen their career or chosen their relationships or chosen the place where they would be on the basis of the mind have often later on found that life is painful. They planned it well, but it didn't go according to that. But those who have allowed it to flower spontaneously, nature, fate, destiny, divine arranges their circumstances in such a way that they get at each moment what they need, the experience they need, the place they should be. They are people who are at the right time, at the right place. That's how Mother put it. That there are people who are always at the right place at the right time. And the others who always seem to somehow miss the whole thing. Why? Because they are deciding by the mind and the vital. Vital because it wants to push, and the mind because it has its own ideas and criterias. So when they are quietened and we are sincere that I am not going to become this or that person, or there is no comparison, contrast, ambition, jealousies, but I just want to do what you want me to do. I want to be what you want me to be. And if we live life like that, then it is beauty, it is simplicity, it is joy, it is love. Okay. Thank you.